So when darkness feels final and hope seems buried, faith implores us to run towards the place where God's already at work. Hi, I'm Bishop Robert Gosselin. This is the First Word. Each morning, you and I open God's Word together, not just for information, but for formation and clarity and the peace that only Christ can give. So take a breath, settle your mind. Let's begin with the first word, shall we? Look, we've all experienced times of hopelessness, all of us. Moments when the outcome appears final and the loss just feels devastating. I mean, what can you do when nothing you say or do can change what's coming? Well, I only know one answer. I mean, we've all faced those seasons. Plans collapsing, doors slamming shut, strength running out, and suddenly the outcome looks sealed. Prayer almost feels empty. And every path forward just seems to end in the same dark place. I mean, let's face it, the day after, it always looks dark. Desperate, irretrievable, unrecoverable, unredeemable. I remember a moment years ago when my wife and I were moving a heavy wooden bureau down into the cellar. I was walking backwards down the steps, hands under the bottom of the bureau. You've probably done it too. Halfway down, my heel caught the edge of the step. Suddenly, I was falling backward. In that instant, I felt like I could see exactly what was coming. My head smashing onto the concrete floor, then the bureau crashing down and crushing my chest. There was absolutely nothing I could do to stop it. And that's exactly where the disciples found themselves on the day after. None of Jesus' promises made any sense on the day after. None of their training seemed relevant on the day after, and no amount of money or influence or even effort could change anything on the day after. And even prayer felt empty, I bet. But even on the day after, God already knew what he intended to do. Now, Peter didn't know. James didn't know. John didn't know. But God did. And here's the irony. The only people who remembered Jesus' prediction of rising from the dead were the ones who didn't believe him in the first place, the Pharisees. Sir, they said to Pilate, we remember that impostor said that after 3 days I will rise. Well, they didn't believe it, but they feared that the disciples might steal the body. If only they knew. The disciples were so busy hiding, they weren't going to steal anything. The disciples were the least of their worries. God's love had already determined the perfect outcome. Didn't look perfect. Looked like it had failed. But the problem was their perspective, not God's plan. They didn't have enough understanding yet. They hadn't seen all that God intended to do yet. It was still dark, blindingly dark. But God's love was already moving. So, what happened to me as I fell backwards down those cellar steps? You might find this one hard to believe. But as I was falling backward, I felt a large, strong hand press firmly into the center of my back. It stopped my fall. It pushed me upright. It even held me steady until I could regain my balance. Now, friends, there was no one in the cellar. Well, no one except God. But those two words, they change everything. But God. See, the truth of God's promises is still true before we see him fulfill them. Faith, Hebrews tells us, is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not yet see. Yeah, your situation may look hopeless, But God has promised deliverance. You may see no possible solution, but God has already worked it out. And you may not understand it yet. You may not see what he's doing yet. May still be dark, blindingly dark. But God's love is already moving. Mary Magdalene understood this better than anyone. John tells us that while it was still dark, Mary went to the tomb. And today's verse says, early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb. She went there to mourn. But when she got there, she found hope, because the tomb was empty. Hope draws its strength from faith. Faith that tells us, even in the dark, that God has a plan. Hope insists on trusting God when we have no clue what he's doing. Hope strengthens faith and lets us be sure of what we hope for and certain of what we don't yet see. Hope lets us say, when I see the fullness of God's plan, I will agree that it was good. Hope lets us run to the tomb while it's still dark. Hope is the hand in our back when we're falling. Hope is the hand that wipes our tears while we weep. Hope, strengthened by faith, lets us stand strong in the darkness, trusting the promises of a loving God. When he seems silent, he loves us still. When we can't see him, he loves us still. What we do in the darkness defines who we are in the light. So where's hope? Hope, strengthened by faith, is found in the love of God. A love that he says is wider and higher and longer and deeper than we can possibly imagine. A love willing to sacrifice his life for ours. Mary thought her hope was dead. She thought hope was lying in the tomb, but he wasn't there. Hope lives. He lives to express his love in us and through us. Hope lives when the diagnosis is grim, because physical death is not the end. Hope lives when we can't see how we'll make it, because he sees and he'll lead the way. Hope lives when our strength fails, because his strength is sufficient. The time to run to the tomb, friends, is when it's still dark, because hope lives.